that the late Prince played while he was alive as the Prime Minister of the Zulu nation, a position occupied, it's said, by members who are, of course, of royalty. For more on this, we're joined by historian, a cultural expert, a linguist, Dr. Gugu Mazibuko, well placed, I suppose, to help us get an understanding of this role. Dr. Mazibuko, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time in coming on tonight here on In Focus. A role of the Prime Minister Ndunankulu of the Zulu nation, right? If we look at it in relation to, for example, something like the National House of Traditional Leaders Act of 2009, is this a role that is catered for there? If so, how? And if not, how does it derive its legitimacy?
Good evening, Thabo, and viewers at home. Thank you very much for having me on such a dark period in the entire Zulu nation, when the longest serving traditional Prime Minister has passed on. Well, the role of the traditional Prime Minister is not catered for in the Act itself. However, this is the role, the most significant role in the nation, AmaZulu in particular, because the traditional Prime Minister is one person who becomes the right-hand man to the king by means of the responsibility that he has. That is why, although it is not catered for in the Act, but you find that as early as King Shaka down to the current Zulu king, all the kings, they had a traditional prime minister, ministers. And in the past, because there were wars, it used to be not even one traditional prime minister, but two. The other one was for the royal family internally in the king's palace, and then the other one was the one who will be more on the Amabuto. Yeah. But as time goes on, there was only one traditional prime minister because there are no wars. So you have the longest serving prime minister who would have essentially, if we look at it, served at least 3 kings, if I am being correct. How does that happen? Is it just an automatical succession? Is it just it becomes automatic that when you are a prime minister, whether or not there's a succession in terms of kingship, you still remain the royal prime minister for that matter? Well, there is no succession in this role, because you find that, if I can make an example with like King Cetshwayo, who was the son of King Bandi. King Cetshwayo's prime minister, traditional prime minister, was Masipula, and he was not from the Buthelezi, as well as King Dinuzulu. It was Mankulumane from the Ndwandwe. And then after that, when King Solomon ascended the throne in 1954, he appointed Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi as his prime minister. And then when he passed on, the next king, who was King Goodwill Zwelithini, also carried over with Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi because of his role that he played in the nation, of his diligence and his truthfulness and his firmness in handling the affairs of the Zulu kingdom. And then we have seen him during the time when there were preparations for the installation of King Mangosuthu. And then after King Mangosuthu ascended the throne, he also carried on with Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi as his traditional prime minister, even though he was very old. But because of the memory that he had, because of his diligence, he also decided to keep him, because he was a very diligent, intelligent, traditional prime minister.
So what occasions a vacancy in that position? In this particular instance, of course, is the passing on of the prince, but would a change of a king necessitate that there would be a change of a prime minister? And does that occasion a point of conflict, I suppose, in terms of who and how that person is going to be appointed?
And I think it's one position that doesn't cause any conflict, because it depends on the king who is on the throne at that particular period, because it is the king who appoints the traditional prime minister. So because he looks at the qualities of that particular individual, because that person must be very smart. He must have knowledge of the history of the nation. He must have knowledge of all the ceremonies and the traditions, and also he must be someone who can easily interact with amakhosi, because the traditional prime minister is the intermediary between the king and his subjects, including amakhosi asendlunkulu, and therefore even amabutho. So he must be well versed with all the structures in the kingdom.
Yeah, I wanted to come to that. How important is it for Undunankulu to have rapport with amabutho? Because it does seem you also serve as Induna Yamabuto or Isegela in some instances. And what would that essentially mean? Would it mean is somebody who would have been a part of Amabuto who would be able to occupy and play that role?
Not necessarily, because KwaZulu, every male belong to a regiment. So in the past, but well, because of modernization and everything, you find that nowadays men are not known by their regiments. But in the past, when they said udlogo, they know exactly that udlogo, these are a particular age group. So it doesn't have to be someone who is part of Ibuto, but of course the king will use his discretion in appointing the traditional prime minister that we may not know. And yeah, because the late traditional prime minister was there for quite some time, and it's been like 70 years from 1954 up until the time when he passed on. So we may never know, but obviously he will be someone who is very firm and very smart to be able to link all the structures of the kingdom, and also liaise with the king, and also advise the king, and also assist the king in all the ceremonies, in all the traditions that are taking place in the kingdom.
Certainly looks like a role with a lot of responsibilities, and one that requires one who really knows a lot about the Zulu culture. Much appreciated. Thank you for your time tonight. That's Dr. Gugu Mazibuko.